The narrative of Dave Gahan is even more captivating when one considers the numerous opportunities that life presents to him. His life has been marked by both brilliant moments and difficult times, and his incredible music is a reflection of both of these aspects. For many years, he has secretly lived his life, and today, at the age of 63, Depeche Mode, at long last, Dave Gahan substantiates what we had been thinking all along. To be more specific, what did he disclose? Are there additional aspects of him that even his most devoted followers will not be aware of? Come along with us as we investigate the specifics of the astounding claims made by Dave Gahan. David Gahan's early life and education. First things first, before we get into these specifics, let's take a look at Dave Gahan's early life and the artistic route he followed. David Gahan, who was born David Colcott on May 9th, 1962 inches, Epping, Essex, was raised in a household that belonged to the socio-economic working class. His father Len, who is of Malaysian Indian descent, was a bus driver, while his mother Sylvia worked as a conductor on London buses. He was named after both of his parents. His father left the family when Gahan was just 6 months old, and his parents divorced 2 years later. Gahan's father abandoned the family. Gahan and his elder sister Sue were relocated to Basildon, Essex by their mother Sylvia after she married her second husband, Jack Gahan, who was employed as a Shell oil administrator. These 2 children were adopted by Jack, and as a result of this marriage, David was able to acquire 2 younger half-brothers, Peter, who was born in 1966, and Phil, who was born in 1968. Initially, Gahan and his sister were under the impression that Jack was their real father. However, when Gahan was 9 years old, Jack passed away, and it was at that time that Len emerged again, this time as Uncle Len. In a conversation that took place in 1987, Gahan reflected, "I will never forget that day. My mother's house was occupied by an unknown person when I returned home from school. He was declared to be my biological father by my mother. It couldn't be true," I answered, "because my father had passed away. I was unaware of the identity of the man." In the years that followed, Len made frequent visits, but he vanished once more for good a year later. Around the time when David Gahan was a student at Barnstable School in Basildon, he started skipping school, which led to him getting into difficulties with the authorities and ultimately leading to his suspension. As a result of his engagement in activities such as joyriding, graffiti, criminal damage, and theft, he was brought before the juvenile court 3 times. The act of taking automobiles, driving them, and then lighting them on fire was a source of joy for Gahan. When he was talking about this period, he said, "I was pretty wild. I cherished the moment when I was able to steal a car, make a hasty getaway, and then be pursued by the authorities. You felt a terrific rush of adrenaline as you hid behind a wall while your heart was pounding. Are they going to catch me?" At the end of his senior year of high school, Gahan submitted his application to North Thames Gas for the post of apprentice fitter. His probation officer encouraged him to be truthful during the interview. Hence, he divulged his criminal past while simultaneously asserting that he had undergone a transformation in his character, which resulted in his application being denied. Because of this, he destroyed the office of his probation officer, and as a consequence, he was given the mandate to spend each Saturday for several weeks in an attendance center in Romford for 1 year. To his memory, "You were required to labor. Boxing and other exercises are still fresh in my mind. Because it required you to take time away from your weekends, getting your hair trimmed felt like it would take an eternity. Someone informed me that the next stop would be the jail center. To tell you the truth, music did save me." Dave Gahan was saved by music in what way? As a student who skipped school in high school, how did he discover his true calling? Moreover, what rumors does he now corroborate? And you should continue to watch to find out. The early stages of Dave Gahan's musical career. Composition of Sound was a band that was formed in March of 1980 by Martin Gore, Andy Fletcher, and Vince Clarke. Clarke was the lead vocalist and guitarist for the band, while Gore played keyboards and Fletcher played bass as well. After some time, the band's name was altered to Depeche Mode. At the beginning of the 1980s, Depeche Mode was a significant figure in the new wave and synth-pop movements. They have issued 15 studio albums, 4 compilations of their best hits, and 2 remix albums, and they have sold more than 100 million records all over the world. There have been 4 of their tunes that have topped the alternative songs list on Billboard. The voyage that Gahan took with Depeche Mode was marred by controversy, despite the band's incredible success. Gahan, who is well known for his commanding presence on stage and his deep voice, had a difficult time determining the band's artistic approach. The lack of experimenting that occurred during the production of Exciter was something that Gahan expressed his frustration about in an interview that took place in 2003. As a result of this, he stated in 2004 that he wanted to compose 50% of the songs for the subsequent album, and that he could not be part without contributing to the realm of songwriting. After reaching a compromise, the band decided to include 3 of Gahan's compositions on the album that was released in 2005. Oh, well. The B-side was also written by Gahan and Martin Gore, and it was the first time that the two of them worked together. Dave Vanian, the frontman of The Damned, is a significant influence on David Gahan's demeanor while he is performing on stage. David Gahan has also claimed that David Bowie, James Brown, Elvis Presley, and Prince are significant inspirations for his performance style. What impact did Dave Gahan's involvement with the Depeche Band have on the majority of his whole life? The Depeche Band is a band that maintain your attention to discover out. The Depeche Mode Band. Originating in Basildon, Essex in the year 1980, Depeche Mode is a band from England known for electronic music. Vince Clarke, Andy Fletcher, Martin Gore, and Dave Gahan were the initial members of the group. At this time, Gahan and Gore are the only members of the band. Vince Clarke and Andy Fletcher, who were classmates in China, started the band No Romance in 1977. Clarke played guitar and vocals, while Fletcher played bass. Fletcher said that he was coerced into joining the band. Along with Robert Marlowe and Paul Langwith, Clarke played guitar in the 1979 band The Plan, which drew inspiration from Ultravox. At around the same period, Martin Gore and Phil Burdett were members of the acoustic duet Norman and the Worms. With Fletcher continuing on bass and Clarke continuing on vocals and guitar, the duo formed Composition of Sound in 1980. They eventually brought on Gore as a third musician. Later that year, Dave Gahan became a member of the band after seeing Clarke play David Bowie's Heroes at a jam session at the Scout Hut. As synthesizers became more accessible and electronic music gained traction, the band began to lean towards a synth-pop sound. On the 14th of June 1980, at Nicholas School in Basildon, England, they made their live performance debut as a quartet. Gore and Fletcher were pupils at the James Hornsby School in Basildon, and a plaque commemorates this concert. Susie and the Banshees, Sparks, Cabaret Voltaire, Iggy Pop, Talking Heads, and Gahan were among the many musicians that Gore and Gahan admired. The Damned's Dave Vanian influenced Gahan's stage persona. Other musicians who shaped his performing approach include Prince, James Brown, David Bowie, and Elvis Presley. At first, the members of Composition of Sound thought their name was strange and contemplated altering it. Vince Clarke even proposed the term musical moments, and they discussed it. The moniker Depeche Mode was ultimately chosen by Dave Gahan. A misspelling of the French fashion publication Depeche Mode gave rise to the moniker. Fast fashion or fashion dispatch is a common misconception about the word, although fashion news or fashion update is a more appropriate description. Photographic was Depeche Mode's first single, released in late 1980 on Some Bazaar. The band subsequently re-recorded the song for their first album, Speak and Spell. They requested that record companies listen to their demo tape before sending it, so they physically delivered it. Most labels rejected them, told them to leave the tape, and then said goodbye, according to Dave Gahan. Major companies had offered the band demi before they signed with Phonogram, which included huge sums of money and benefits like wardrobe allowances. An electronic producer and founder of Mute Records, Daniel Miller, became enamored with the band during their live performance at the Bridge House in Canning Town. His new record label needed a hit, and he wanted them to record one. As a result, they began working on their debut song in December 1980. It was released in February 1981 and peaked at number 57 on the UK charts. Their second song, New Life, was inspired by their success and reached number 11 in the UK charts, landing them an appearance on Top of the Pops. The group took a train to London, where they performed at the BBC studios, accompanied by their synthesizers. The fame that Dave Gahan enjoyed while performing with Depeche Mode. The next song by Depeche Mode, Just Can't Get Enough, made it into the UK Top 10 for the first time. Vince Clarke appeared in just this video. Many critics were divided on their first album, Speak and Spell. Melody Maker thought it was a fantastic record, but Rolling Stone said it was PG-rated filler. A lack of time owing to picture shoots and interviews, as well as his annoyance with traveling, were among the reasons Clarke began to voice his discontent with the band's direction. Later on, Gahan called Clarke's gripes bullshit and brought up the fact that Clarke cared more about fan letters than the band's actual performance. Yazoo's rendition of the song peaked at number 3 in the UK. After Clarke left, the band's primary songwriter and composer became Gore, who had previously worked with Speak and Spell on tracks like Big Muff and Tora, Tora, Tora. Gore took up songwriting duties for the band's second album, A Broken Frame, when Clarke departed at the tail end of 1981 to form Yazoo and then Erasure. The next year, Alan Wilder became a member, and the band went on to release a string of hit albums with this configuration, including 1984's Some Great Reward and 1983's Construction Time Again. They cemented their position in electronic and alternative music with albums like Music for the Masses and Black Celebration. In 1988, they played before a crowd of approximately 20,000 people in the Pasadena Rose Bowl. Their 1990 album Violator was certified triple platinum and peaked at number 7 on the Billboard 200. Despite the success of 1993's Songs of Faith and Devotion, Wilder left the group in 1995 due to personal concerns. Depeche Mode has been incredibly successful. 17 of their albums reached the top 10 in the UK, and 54 of their songs became singles. Worldwide, they have sold more than 100 million albums. In addition to being voted #8 on VH1's 100 Greatest Artists of All Time, the band was included in Q's list of the 50 bands that altered the world. On top of being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2020, they were ranked as the 10th best dance club performers of all time by Billboard in 2016. In what other ways did Dave Gahan's musical journey stand out? How far did his pursuit of fame go? To discover out, continue watching Dave Gahan's stardom as a solo act. Paper Monsters, Gahan's first solo album, was released in 2003. Together with his friend and fellow guitarist Knox Chandler, Gahan collaborated on the album's composition. To promote the record, he embarked on the Paper Monsters tour, which included a performance at the Glastonbury Festival. There was a decent amount of success for the album, with the track Dirty Sticky Floors making it into the top 20 on the singles list in the United Kingdom. It was the album itself that made it into the top 10 on the album chart in Europe and the top 40 on the album chart in the United Kingdom. Gahan announced that he was working on a new album, titled Hourglass, in 2007. He did so by posting a video message on the official website of Depeche Mode, which was shot at the charity event hosted by Musicar. The recording of Hourglass, a project that he collaborated on with Christian Einer and Andrew Philpott, took place at his studios located on the 11th floor of New York City. Gahan gave the impression that Hourglass had a sound that was more electronic in comparison to that of Paper Monsters. The album made it into the top 50 inches the United Kingdom and the top 20 inches France, and it came dangerously close to attaining the top place in Germany. Kingdom was the name of the album's debut single, which was released. According to an article that appeared in Sideline magazine in July 2007, David Gahan was collaborating with Thomas Anselmi on a project that was being produced by Vincent Jones, entitled Mirror. Knox Chandler, who had previously worked with Gahan, was also a part of the project. Additionally, the project had a monologue by Joe D'Alessandro, a Warhol superstar, and featured piano music by Mike Garson, who was a favorite of David Bowie. In October 2008, Gahan contributed his vocals to the song Nostalgia, which was published. The album was made available for download at the beginning of 2009. In addition, Gahan contributed to the music video for the song. It was when Gahan joined producer and former Clore guitarist Luke Smith in his New York studio that he was able to contribute vocals to the single Visitors, which was released by Friars. Gahan was the lead vocalist and songwriter for Soul Saver's fourth studio album, The Light the Dead Sea, which was released on May 21, 2012. The album was published in 2012. In addition, he contributed vocals and harmonica playing to the song Low Guns, which was the first single to be released from the album The Morning After by the English band Six Toes. which was published on November 18, 2013. During the year 2009, the Six Toes remix of Jezebel was included on a special version of the album Sounds of the Universe by Depeche Mode. Members of Soul Savers collaborated with members of Six Toes on the production of The Light the Dead Sea. In 2015, Gahan worked with Soul Savers once more on the album Angels and Ghosts. The lead song, titled All of This and Nothing, was made available for digital download on September 11th. David Gahan was a contributor to the song Where I Wait by Null Plus Void, which was included on the album Cryosleep in the year 2017. The tune was remixed 3 times, each time in a different combination. Throughout 2018, he was featured on a remix of Goldfrapp's Single Ocean, which was made available for digital download on the 21st of May. According to Goldfrapp, the fact that we were able to collaborate with Dave Gahan on the new version of Ocean was a tremendous honor for our band. In 2012, Gahan covered Metallica's Nothing Else Matters for the charity tribute album The Metallica Blacklist, and also provided guest vocals on a single by Jenny Lee Lindberg. On the 12th of November, 2021, he released an album of covers titled Imposter with Soul Savers. In 2023, Gahan contributed a cover of Mother of Earth by the Gun Club to the 4th installment of the Jeffrey Lee Pierce Sessions Project series of tribute albums titled The Task Has Overwhelmed Us. Gahan's life was soon going to take a sad turn. What sad thing happened in Dave Gahan's life? How did he navigate the sorrows? Stay tuned as we unveil these details. Ashes to Ashes is a tribute to Dave Gahan's friend. 2022 brought Gahan's sorrow after losing his dear friend and valuable bandmate, Andy Fletcher. Andrew John Fletcher, also known as Fletch, born on the 8th of July 1961, was an English keyboardist and a founding member of the electronic band Depeche Mode. Born in Basildon to Joy and John Fletcher, he was the oldest of 4 siblings. The family moved from Nottingham to Basildon when Fletcher was 2, following his father's job offer at a cigarette factory. Since he was a young lad, Fletcher has been a member of the local boys' brigade, mostly to play football. During the time that punk rock was making its debut on the music scene, he, along with his pals Vince Clarke and Martin Gore, were in their adolescent years. Fletcher believed that this was the ideal period to experience it. Bands such as Susie and the Banshees, The Cure, Kraftwerk, The Human League, and Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark served as sources of inspiration for them. Dave Gahan joined the band later that year, which is when the band decided to change their name to Depeche Mode. Before that, Clarke was the primary songwriter and lead vocalist for the band. In late 1981, shortly after the release of their debut album, Speak and Spell, Clarke decided to leave the band. At the end of 1982, Alan Wilder became a member of the band, and they continued to perform as a quartet. During the year 1989, as Depeche Mode was in the process of recording their album Violator, Fletcher struggled with both anxiety and despair. In 1993, when he was working on the recording of Songs of Faith and Devotion, he experienced a relapse. The next year, he was forced to abandon the Exotic Tour and the Summer Tour in 1994 due to a mental breakdown. The band completed their tour without him throughout South America and the United States of America. Following Alan Wilder's departure from the band in 1995, the core trio consisting of Gahan, Gore, and Fletcher continued to perform together, continuing their work right up to the release of their album Spirit in 2017 and the ensuing world tour that followed. Fletcher's position within Depeche Mode was frequently called into doubt. Later on, he transitioned from playing electric bass to playing synthesizer bass. In the years that followed Vince Clarke's departure from the band in 1981, each member took on duties that were specifically tailored to their skills. Fletcher provided a concise summary of the parts in the band's documentary that was directed by D.A. Pennebaker in 1989. Dave is the vocalist, Martin is the lyricist, Alan is the talented guitarist, and I am just a mediocre member of the band. This viewpoint was repeated by Rolling Stone writer Gavin Edwards in his review of the album Playing the Angel, which was released in 2005. Edwards stated that because the band did not always have a full-time manager, Fletcher was responsible for many of the band's business, legal, and non-musical tasks throughout their career. The press kit for Songs of Faith and Devotion included an expression of his real interest in the financial aspect of the music industry, which is something that the majority of musicians attempt to ignore. Therefore, Fletcher was responsible for managing a significant portion of the band's economic activities. Subsequently, he became the band's spokesperson, and he frequently handled announcements regarding recordings and tours. Without a doubt, he was an essential part of the squad. Nevertheless, was he a member that could be replaced? Why did he decide to quit the band? And how did he depart? Maintain your attention to discover out how Andy Fletcher died. Andy Fletcher was also known as the tiebreaker, who helped bring the band together. For example, he played a key role in resolving a major dispute between Gahan and Gore after the Exciter album and tour in 2001, finding a compromise on future songwriting duties. In the studio and during live shows, Fletcher contributed various supporting synthesizer parts, including bass, strings, drones, and samples. While he didn't sing often, he did provide vocals on some tracks. For instance, he sang in the interlude Crucified from Violator and was part of the choir for Condemnation from Songs of Faith and Devotion, as confirmed by Alan Wilder. In 2023, producer Gareth Jones analyzed the song Told You So during a live event and revealed that Fletcher sang backing vocals during the last middle 8 sections of the track. On a more personal level, Fletcher was married to Grania Fletcher for about 30 years, and they had 2 children together. In the early 1980s, while Depeche Mode was touring with Blancmange, Fletcher was well known for his chess skills. In interviews, Neil Arthur, who is a member of the Blancmange band, once stated that he had never been victorious in a game of chess against Andy Fletcher. Throughout the 1990s, Fletcher was the proprietor of a restaurant in Street St. John's Wood, London, that was known as Gascogne. The fact that he made several poor investments, however, led to his experiencing financial troubles, which ultimately resulted in financial settlements with Lloyd's of London and Daniel Miller. On top of that, Fletcher struggled with mental health concerns, which he attributed to the fact that he had inherited an obsessive-compulsive illness from his father and that he had lost his sister at an early age. It was in 1993 when he encountered a relapse, and it was during the Exotic Tour in 1994 that he suffered a mental breakdown. The news that Andy Fletcher had gone away was released on the 22nd of May, 2022, which was a devastating turn of events. It was determined that Fletcher had suffered an aortic dissection, which is a tear in a major blood artery in the heart, which was the reason for his premature death. In the comfort of his own home, he went away calmly and naturally. The tragic news that Fletcher had passed away came as a complete surprise to the fans, who had not been anticipating an announcement of this magnitude. Despite the sorrow, there was nothing that could change what had taken place. The band Depeche Mode, which is now comprised of Gore and Gahan, announced their first album after Fletcher's loss after he had passed away. To pay tribute to Fletcher's memory, Gahan and Martin Gore committed to finishing the album titled Memento Mori. In March of 2023, they intended to embark on a tour of North America, during which they would perform at renowned venues such as Madison Square Garden in New York City, the United Center in Chicago, the Kia Forum in Los Angeles, and the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. In addition, as part of the European leg of the tour, they were scheduled to perform at Twickenham Stadium in London on the 17th of June. The tough moments that they had to go through served as inspiration for the record that they started working on from the beginning of the epidemic. They decided to proceed with the project even though Fletcher had passed away because they believed that this was what he would have wanted. The fact that Andy Fletcher would have enjoyed the album Memento Mori, which Dave Gahan said, made it even more significant for them to go with their voyage. Because of the outpouring of love that has been shown to Andy, the band would like to take this opportunity to convey their thanks to the fans, who have sent them poignant comments and images that demonstrate how much he meant to every one of them. What was it that Dave Gahan managed to finally establish that we had been thinking all along? Well, let's find out. Dave Gahan's health struggles. Gahan struggled with addiction and other personal troubles when he was away from the public eye. The difficulties he faced were compounded by his health problems, which included a diagnosis of cancer that was potentially fatal. His battle with cancer started right before he was scheduled to perform in Athens, Greece. Because he was experiencing severe symptoms of illness in the locker room, he was brought to the hospital, where the medical staff detected a tumor in his bladder. Because the tumor had not yet entered the bladder wall, they promptly warned him that emergency surgery was likely to be his best chance of recovery. Gahan described in an emotional interview how the medical professionals first believed that it was nothing more than a stomach illness. Despite this, The surprising finding of the tumor was revealed when the patient had an ultrasonography procedure. Even though he first denied the scenario and was reluctant to break his 8-month tour, the oncologist's explanation of the problem made it abundantly evident that the situation was quite severe. Soon after, Gahan was persuaded, and he went through with the procedure to remove the tumor. He acknowledged that he was afraid that he would pass away. Immediately after the operation, he was forced to endure a challenging time of recuperation and engaged in some profoundly emotional exchanges with his wife Jennifer. She argued that she was not happy with his talking, as if he had given up, even though Gahan had informed her at one time that he believed he would be perfect. It was important to her that he not give in to the temptation of abandoning his family and instead fight for what he believed in. Cystoscopies were performed regularly during his recovery. During these procedures, a camera was put into his urethra to check his health and make sure he remained healthy. Dave Gahan found the experience of undergoing regular cystoscopies to be quite uncomfortable. Nonetheless, he gradually learned to view it as a blessing, simply to be alive and surrounded by his family and friends, regardless of the circumstances. The expression of thankfulness that he displayed was clear, particularly in light of the challenges that he had encountered even before he was diagnosed with cancer. In spite of these challenges, Gahan was able to persevere, thanks to his deep-seated love of music and his inner fortitude. Throughout his life, Gahan has also been plagued by several challenges related to his physical and mental health. During his time spent in recovery from substance abuse, he dealt with several near-death experiences. The local paramedics gave him the moniker "the Cat" during the most difficult times of his life in Los Angeles. This was because he had survived 4 near-death experiences. During a concert in New Orleans in October 1993, Gahan experienced a small heart attack that was caused by substance use. As a result, Depeche Mode was forced to improvise an encore without him. During the middle of the 1990s, Dave Gahan commissioned the construction of a unique chamber in his house in Los Angeles. This area, which was referred to as the Blue Area, was designed specifically for his substance abuse, and the only way to enter it was through the bedroom that he shared with his second wife, Teresa Conway, who was also the publicist for the band. At one point in time, Gahan was confined to this room alone for 3 weeks, with a friend coming in to check on him regularly. In an interview with Arena magazine that took place in April 1997, Gahan made the following statement regarding this period. "I was fantasizing about death and just disappearing altogether. What I had become was not something I liked, and I was clueless about how to change it." Gahan was precariously close to taking his own life by the time the spring of 1996 rolled around. In the bathroom of his suite at the Sunset Marquise Hotel in West Hollywood, on the 28th of May, during the weekend of Memorial Day, he injected a mixture of drugs that is often referred to as a speedball into his arm. Gahan, a seasoned user, suspected that something was awry and communicated his concern to his dealer by saying, "I'm not feeling well." To his suspicion, he suffered a heart attack and collapsed on the floor of the restroom within 15 minutes. Dave Gahan detailed his experience of coming dangerously close to passing away in an interview with The Guardian from the previous year. "I was overcome with a horror like I had never experienced before, and the darkness was total. Although there was complete silence in the room, the darkness seemed to be quite close." What caused Dave to develop an addiction? Has he made any preparations for his recovery? Which ones are they? Maintain your attention to discover out. Dave Gahan's journey towards redemption. It wasn't until Gahan relocated to Los Angeles in 1991 that substance use became a habit, although he had previously experimented with them in 1979 Inches London. Band members stopped communicating at the end of Depeche Mode's 14-month tour in support of songs of faith and devotion, and Gahan's addiction had progressed to a severe level. The band sent Gahan home after only 2 days of reuniting in New York to record their 9th album. Although his bandmates offered him a final opportunity to sober up, he failed miserably at using it. Gahan said that while returning to Los Angeles, he used more than previously. "I became distraught. There was a brief period on the 28th of May, 1996, when Gahan was officially deceased. He informed Arena that the paramedics had told him he should have died. According to them, I had the wherewithal to murder an equine." A cop had apprehended Gahan and charged him with possessing the narcotics that his dealer had neglected to remove from the hotel room when he woke up at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. From his recovery facility, Gahan told the Los Angeles Times he counted himself lucky to be alive in an interview that took place in the summer of 1996. "David, you died," was the response I got when I informed someone I had overdosed as I was leaving the hospital. "You were resurrected 3 times. I risked suffering irreversible brain damage. You don't need to be a lifelong user when I consider how this tiny powder might provide a brief surge of pleasure. You only need to do it once. The common belief is that it will be okay if you give it a go once. As scary as it is, it appears like a lot of people are avoiding other drugs and jumping right to the king stuff." Not wanting to be a preacher was his next comment. "My favorite thing to do is play in a rock and roll band. Being David is all I desire." Dave Gahan's choice to enter treatment was a watershed moment, coming a few months after he was faced with charges. He embarked on a path to treatment and healing driven by an unwavering will to change his life. So, in your opinion, how good is Dave Gahan? Do you have any thoughts on his addiction tale as well? Post your opinions in the space provided. This video would not have been possible without you. We trust that you were captivated by it. Please subscribe and like the video. If you want to see the latest celebrity news, just click the video that appears on your screen. We will meet there.